is now being recorded. Once we complete the meeting, we will get it posted to the project webpage, which I mentioned, and I'll include another link in chat. And I will post that to the project webpage here in the next day or so. At the end of the meeting, we'll ask that you virtually raise your hand during the Q&A period. And I'll provide instructions when we get to that point as how to raise your hand. You can do that either if you're joining us from your smartphone, your computer, or if you're joining us from your phone itself. And then lastly, we do have chat enabled on this meeting. If you want to ask your question in chat instead of asking it verbally at the end of the session, you're welcome to do that. And then I will read out the chat questions when we get to the Q&A portion. So please feel free to chat or to wait for your question in the Q&A period. Okay, so with that, I will turn it over to Nate and to Aaron.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning. We are here to talk about our project that we are planning at the Bemis and Whittaker intersection. This will be a roundabout, and it will be constructed in 2023 is our plan. And just wanted to introduce to you the project and talk to you about how we came about this decision, how roundabouts work, the benefits of roundabouts, just kind of give you some background on the project and give you a heads up on timing for it. So this slide here shows the aerial of that location. I'm sure that you all are aware or are familiar with the area. Bemis Road and Whittaker Road is where we are planning the roundabout. Next slide, please. This is the current state. This is right on the border of Ypsilanti and Augusta townships. There is currently a four-way stop. It's a four-way stop intersection and has some congestion issues during especially peak hours. And this is how this location was identified based on the traffic volumes. And we'll talk about that on the next slide, please. So during our planning steps, we conduct what is called a signal warrant analysis. Basically, this is to review the existing traffic volumes, to review delays and the crash history at this location. So when we identify a location where the volumes are at a certain number and delays and the crash history are warranting a improvement to the intersection, we review that and we come to the question, should we use a traffic signal or a roundabout? That is part of our study. And then we look at what it could be our potential funding options for this location. We routinely monitor stop controlled intersections of primary roads. Once the congestion meets a certain point, as I've said, we conduct this study and review the peak hour and crash history for that location. Next slide, please. At this location, our preferred option is a roundabout, and we will look at some of these issues that comes with a roundabout. It solves the congestion and it promotes safety and lower speeds. Next slide, please. Also wanted to let you know, as we look at these locations, we do consider the corridor that we're working on, and this happens to be on the Whittaker Road corridor. As we've identified, you can see up in the north end there are existing roundabouts at Merritt and up farther, but we are looking at this Whittaker Road as a corridor, and we're looking to improve that location for flow of traffic all along this corridor. So as part of, we have identified this one at Bemis for a 2023 construction. And beyond that, we are planning a roundabout also at the Willis Road at Whittaker, and that will be a 2024 construction project. Next slide, please. As I said, we just want to look at why roundabouts. If we go to the next slide, we can see all of the roundabouts that we have in Washtenaw County. These include both MDOT, Washtenaw County roadways, and the city of Ann Arbor. You can see there is quite a few in our county. and they are being used more as there's many benefits from them. So if we go to the next slide, we look at the problems that we want to solve when we do our signal or our intersection warrant studies. Most of our road network is a 2-lane roadway. We look to identify fixes for that kind of geometry. So for a 2-lane roadway, we look to address congestion. The intersections are our particular choke point. It creates conflicts. And in our county, we have 26 primary road all-way stop controlled intersection, meaning a 4-way stop. Next slide. So when we look at these 2 potential solutions for each intersection as we study them, would be to go with the signal, or we go with the roundabout. And so that is the main 2 options that we have to pick from. And in this case, we are planning to do the roundabout. And if you look at the next slide, please, we can see as we transition to building roundabouts, the safety for the total crashes reduces by 39%. And there's a 90% reduction in serious injury and fatalities. This is due to having lower speeds. We have improved traffic capacity as we implement these roundabouts, and makes it, with the center island and the different aesthetics that we include, it creates an opportunity for placemaking and aesthetic enhancements if so desired. So if we go to the next slide, I like this slide. This talks to the difference really between a signalized intersection and a modern roundabout. You can see on this slide all of the points of conflict. On the left there is the standard intersection, and there is 32 vehicle conflict locations associated with a standard intersection, as opposed to when you look at a roundabout and how it functions, there's only 8. And that every time there is a point of conflict, that's where 2 vehicles could have where they're impacting. They could potentially impact each other. They could have an accident there. So you can see just by the sheer number of conflict points, the benefit that comes along with the roundabout. And as I've said, the safety also is driven from the geometry, and you can see that some in this next slide. If we go to the next one, the standard roundabout, you enter, the entering traffic yields to the traffic in the center. There's counterclockwise movement, and as you approach it, you can see there are these splitter islands that are the geometry causes the vehicles to make turns, slight changes in direction, so that it requires the traffic to slow down on the approach. So that in itself brings a lot of the safety. It brings the speeds down and controls the movements through the circle. Next slide, please. As well, these roundabouts provide for the larger vehicles. You can see here is a truck as it's going and entering through the roundabout. There is the space on that center island that provides the necessary space for the larger vehicles to make that turn and to get through the intersection without issues. Next slide, please. Wanted to point out on our website, we do have additional resources that you can access. Gives background information on roundabouts. If you would like, that is, we can provide the link on there. And you can go to our website to see that. On the next slide, we have the basic layout of this project that we're looking at. This is the proposed plan view of looking down on the aerial at Bemis and Whittaker. There will be the splitter islands, as I talked about. You can see the geometry there, and will cause the slower speeds on entry. We will have a center circle, center island, we call it. And that basically is the basic layout for our roundabout that we have planned. This again will be constructed in 2023.
And Nate,
Excellent.
this is just, we're still in the design process, right? So this is close, but not final, right?
Yes, correct.
This is just a rendering.
Yes.
Okay.
So project funding and costs. We will be using Michigan transportation funds, comes from license and registration fees as well as fuel tax. We also have countywide roads and non-motorized millage that we'll be using that was renewed by voters in 2020. The estimated construction cost that the engineer's estimate is at $1.8 million. And so next slide, please. Our schedule we're planning is to start the work in June of 2023. That's a tentative start, but looking at how we're looking to bid this out and get started, that's our schedule for starting in June of 2023. We expect the work to take approximately 14 weeks to complete. Next slide, please. Want to underscore that during the construction, the intersection will be completely closed to through traffic. This is to provide a safe work zone for the workers and to expedite the work rather than having traffic entering through the work area. It benefits the time schedule when there's not traffic going through the work zone. So we want to just make sure as many times as possible to reiterate that the intersection will be closed to through traffic. And that includes, vehicles, bike, pedestrians, just so that we can maintain a safe work zone for both the workers and the motoring public or the public coming through with all of the equipment that is necessary to construct this type of intersection. Let's see, next slide, please. Here's my contact information again. Just wanted you to feel free to give me a call or email me if you have some concern or would like to talk to me. I'm happy to help you out as much as I can. We will be having another meeting in the spring to talk about the construction details. So that we will review in the spring or sometime. We have not scheduled that yet, but prior to construction, we will do a meeting similar to this and talk through all the details of the construction of the roundabout.
Thanks, Nate. So before we go into the Q&A period, Aaron, is there anything else that you'd like to add before we, and I'll also show everybody where they can find the project page on the website.
Sure. And just a couple of items here. Nate really did a great job of covering a general overview of the intended project and why we would select a roundabout for this intersection. But what I would like to reiterate is that we do, the road commission and the staff that work here, including Nate and I, are tasked with managing our road infrastructure investments. And one of the ways in which we make sure that we're thoughtfully investing taxpayer dollars is we look at corridors. And Nate brought that up, and certainly Whittaker Road in this southeast part of the county is a very important corridor for the motorists and the residents in that part of the county. So we're very thoughtful about the way we invest that taxpayer money. Oftentimes people will ask, well, why would you work on this intersection now? And again, we weigh things like traffic studies, traffic volumes, and we really try to strategically identify projects that are in need, that are good expenditures of that funding, that transportation funding. Nate talked about the conflict points that come with a traffic signal versus a roundabout, and how those conflict points for moving traffic are greatly reduced with a roundabout option. And something that I like to mention to people when residents of the county, motorists, friends and family ask me, well, why a roundabout? And I always like to stress the fact that it promotes greater safety, because if you think about it, when you're traveling through a stop controlled intersection or a traffic signal controlled intersection, you are relying on that motorist that is approaching the intersection, that they have awareness, that they are looking at that signal, that it registers with them that they have a red light. If for whatever reason they fail to yield at the stop sign or at the red light, and they run through and they hit you, there is the possibility they are going to broadside your car. We refer that as a T-bone. And if they T-bone your car, that is going to increase the likelihood of a very serious injury, crash, or fatality. And so what we've seen through the construction and the promotion of these roundabouts is there is a far less potential that there would be a broadside or a T-bone type impact. We're not here sitting and saying there are no accidents at roundabouts, but those accidents that do occur are generally far less severe because it ends up being like bump type accidents. People that are approaching the roundabout may fail to yield. They come into the roundabout and bump a vehicle that's in the roundabout. But again, the geometry, the layout of the roundabout is such is that it slows the speeds, and really it forces people to pay attention, far more so than what we've seen with a stop controlled intersection or a traffic signal, a signalized intersection. And then something else that's come up, and not so much lately, because as Nate pointed out, we have several roundabouts throughout the county. So there's drivers are becoming more and more familiar with the way that roundabouts function, but a roundabout is not a rotary. A rotary is different. Where I've experienced that is visiting family out east. Out on the eastern part of the U.S., they constructed rotaries years ago. Those function differently than a roundabout. But again, we're gaining more and more familiarity as drivers in Washtenaw County with these type of intersections. So we've certainly benefited from that. So just a few additional notes, Emily, that I wanted to offer. But if you want to go ahead and go into a question and answer, that would be great.
Thanks, Aaron. And before I do that, I'm just going to pause my screen share here for a second and just show or pause my slideshow here just for a second and show where you can subscribe to receive project updates and find out more information. So our website is wcroads.org, shameless plug. We are updating it pretty much daily with different road advisories, road alerts, construction project, construction updates throughout the season. And so I'd really encourage you to check out our website. But I'm going to show you a particular page on our website where you can subscribe to receive project updates about this specific project. So if you go to wcroads.org and then you go under our road workers and construction, we have our current projects map. Right now, the Bemis at Whittaker project is a 2023 construction, so it doesn't show on this map yet. We're working on our 2023 map right now, but we do have the project page listed here and under these tiles. So you can find it here, Bemis at Whittaker Road. I've already got it open in a new tab. And here, this is where we will put the meeting slides from today. We'll put it under here under helpful links. We'll also put today's meeting recording there as well. And you can see Nate's contact information here. You can see more details. We'll update this page as we get closer. Nate mentioned that we'll have another construction information meeting once we get a lot closer to construction. We have a contractor identified. And so that information will be here and publicized on this webpage. And then if you're interested, you can subscribe to receive project updates. So you would click this button, and then there are lots of different updates that you can subscribe to receive. If you are interested in just getting road advisories about road work going on in Augusta Township or Ypsilanti Township or any township in the county, you can say which township you'd like to receive updates on, and then what types of emails you'd like to receive, and then what projects you would like to receive about. So you could literally just come in here and only subscribe to receive Bemis at Whittaker Road Roundabout project updates, and we won't email you anything else. So this is a great way that you can get updates depending on what type of updates you're looking for. So again, that's at wcroads.org, and then you can find it under our current projects page where it's listed there. It'll be on our current projects map when we get the 2023 map published here, probably at the beginning of the new year. So let me get back to the slideshow, and then we can go ahead into our Q&A. And we've got a couple questions in, and we've got a bunch of hands raised, so that's great. All right, so before we dive into that, let me just give some quick instructions. So if you want to ask a question during this period and you're joining us from your computer or smartphone, you want to first make sure that you click the join audio button, and then you want to click look for the reactions button on your screen, and then the raise hand button. It may be at the bottom of your screen or at the top, depending on what version of Zoom you're using. If you've called in today from your touch tone phone, you can raise your hand by dialing *9. What I'll do is I'm going to rotate between those who've asked questions on chat and those who have their hands virtually raised, and we'll just go back and forth until we get through everybody. We don't have time limits on questions or anything like that today, but we just ask that everybody be respectful of each other's time. And with that, we can dive right in. I'm going to start with a question that we've gotten multiple times in chat, and so we'll just get that one out of the way because I'm wondering if these are some of the hands raised too. But we've had multiple people ask about the unpaved part of Bemis Road. So a section of Bemis Road is unpaved adjacent to this roundabout. And so there are questions about whether that's going to get paved along with this project or in the future here at the Road Commission. I've also, Matt McDonnell, our Director of Engineering, is here as well. I'm not sure if Matt wants to chime in, or Nate or Aaron, who wants to take that one. About paving Bemis. Hey, Matt.
Hello, I can certainly take that one. Obviously, a portion of that approach will get paved as part of the roundabout project, but we do not have anything currently programmed to pave that section of gravel portion of Bemis Road east of Whittaker. So not at this time, but we certainly are aware there is a desire of the community to do so.
And paving an unpaved road is a whole different animal than building a roundabout. Okay, so, all right, so those were the first couple questions we got in chat. So let's go to our first hand raised, and then we'll go back to anybody in chat. So Robert Rock, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
Got it.
We can hear you. Go ahead with your question.
Okay, I have several questions, and I'd just like to say, first of all, I am a roundabout fan. You know, I think the ones that we have close around to us work wonderfully for the most part. But I have some questions about this one. The first one is what is the diameter of the inner circle of the roundabout, and will its center point be at the center of the current intersection?
So if you could go back to the aerial view there.
Yep.
Right.
Okay, so yes, so the center will be offset a little bit to the west, I'm sorry. So that's just the way we were able to coordinate with utilities and find the best fit. That would move the center just slightly to the west. And the center, let's see, the inscribed diameter on this one is, I think, 100 and boy, let me see here. Pulling that up now.
Yeah, Nate, if you need a minute, we can go to an Robert, if you've got another question, we can follow up with that one.
Okay, yeah. There are two follow-up questions on that. One is it raised? And the second one is it lighted?
Yeah, so, oh, sorry, Nate, I wanted to give you a minute more to find that inside diameter, that inscribed circle diameter. Did you find that, Nate?
I'm working on that.
Okay. And then, yeah, in regards to the splitter islands and the center island, those will be raised. So we would have curb and gutter constructed for the splitter islands in the approaches, and for the center island, the circle that's in the middle. The concrete that would be placed in those splitter islands and that center island would be colored red, and it's stamped to look like brick. So it's a decorative type investment, but also the red color improves driver identification of the splitter islands and the center island. So again, we will have raised splitter islands and a center island. And there are going to be lights installed here. So we're currently coordinating with the DTE Community Lighting. DTE actually performs the lighting design as we undertake the construction of a new roundabout. But there will be lighting at this intersection, similar to some of the other roundabouts that we've built recently. And Nate, did you want to go ahead, Nate, and mention the? Did you find that inside diameter?
Yeah, so it's 107-foot inscribed diameter there.
Wow, that's big. So is that the same size? Will it be basically like the one at Merritt and Whittaker? Or do you have that?
I don't know.
No,
if
it'll be slightly smaller.
Okay. And okay, next question is, can you turn left onto Foxtail Court when exiting the circle traveling west on Bemis? So you're
Yes.
coming from the north and you go right basically onto Bemis in this picture.
Yes, you will be. You can see that the splitter island there in that quadrant, it ends prior to Foxtail Drive.
Right.
So you will be able to make that left.
I live on Foxtail Drive, obviously. So that brings up my concern that I wanted to express to you all is just, it concerns me a little bit that with people stop there turning left, especially when school is out and there's traffic coming from the other direction, that traffic could back up into the circle and cause a safety issue. And so I know you haven't done the final design yet, but if there's any way you can widen the street enough or anything to allow for a little bit of a left turn area in the center or something, it might make sense there.
Okay, we can certainly review that and take a look at that for sure. Yeah.
And Robert,
I
if you want to provide your email address or phone number, I can provide that to Nate after the meeting and we can follow up with you directly.
Okay. Do you want to now or you want me to text you?
Yeah, why don't you, if you want to put it in the message, or we've also got Nate's phone number if you want to give him a call, just so we've got time to get everybody
Sure.
else's questions in
Sure.
too.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.
And I have one more question. I guess that's really it. The other one, though, is kind of related to the other question about paving of Bemis that might affect the traffic in this is the only reason I ask it. And do you know if there's any master plan for the paving Bemis west of Hitchingham to Carpenter at this point in time?
I'll let Matt or Aaron answer that one.
Yeah, I can speak to that. Certainly we're looking at a corridor. Bemis Road is another important corridor, and certainly we have identified some funding to look at the next segment of Bemis Road. Years ago, we paved between Whittaker and Hitchingham, and we're looking at the next segment potentially being from Hitchingham to Stony Creek.
Okay, that'd be great. Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
No
Robert.
problem.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's go. We'll go back to a question in chat. So this question comes from Donald, and he is wondering, so it looks like if it's a planned 14-week construction, that will bleed into the school year. What's the plan for people to get to the nearby schools when the intersection is closed? Will traffic be rerouted through Green Farms? Just general kind of traffic management questions. And it might be something that we need to talk more about at our construction information meeting once we have our contractor identified. But Nate, is there anything you can answer there?
Yes, we're still kind of reviewing exactly what that route will be. So we are aware that it would potentially impact it for a short duration. But we're not quite there yet. We will certainly cover that on the construction meeting and let everyone know then.
And
Okay.
Emily, I'll also mention that in general, and again, this is something that we're going to be discussing with Lincoln Consolidated Schools, but in general, when we've done other work that is near a school, it is better for those transportation departments if we try to start the project after the current school year ends, even if that means impacting the next school year, the beginning of the next school year. So again, something that certainly we would be considerate of with Lincoln, but that's been our general experience. Is it's better to impact the next school year rather than the current one. But certainly, any road project that we work on presents a challenge because of the seasonal nature of Michigan. And at this point, as many of you probably realize, we're right at the end of our construction season. Probably next week or the week after, the asphalt paving plants will shut down for the season. And then we won't start construction again until probably April or May, depending on what Mother Nature provides. So again, we try to make these road improvements, including the construction of a roundabout, to provide the least inconvenience for motorists. But at the same time, we do have a limited construction season to work with. And that's a challenge that we deal with every season.
Thanks, guys. Okay, so let's go to our next raised hand. We've got Andy Nelson. Andy, you should be able to unmute yourself. If you are talking, Andy, we cannot hear you. Andy, we can't hear you if you're talking. I'll go to the next person, and then you may have to switch where your microphone is getting, what the source of your microphone is, but we'll come back to you. I'll mute you and then we'll try again. Next raised hand is Tim Sullivan. Tim, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Emily, can you hear me?
We can. Yep. Go ahead with your question.
Perfect. And I think you guys just answered it. We're in regards to the subdivision Green Farms. I've been living in the sub for about 20 years, and we've been watching the roundabout slowly develop through the community. And my biggest concern, again, is just the passing through of people trying to get to Child's Brick, trying to get to Lincoln High School. I understand it's 14 weeks, but sometimes these projects take longer, as we're seeing with the I-94 work that's currently being done. So I just want to make sure that we're highlighting the fact that we, as a community, we're concerned about that passing through and using the subdivision as a pass through. Maybe there's a way to reach out to Lincoln High School and that district to see if they can get information out to the parents, not to use that subdivision as a means to get to where they need to get to while we're waiting for the roundabout to get done.
Yeah, and Tim, definitely note taken. I think one of the things that we have to try to balance, all of the work that we do is a balance, is that those are public roads. I'm 95% sure, right, Aaron, that that subdivision is public roads. And so the public are allowed to travel on there. And so we can't necessarily like close those roads to through traffic, because those types of tickets issued wouldn't stand up in court. So trying to balance that, because they are public roads. But I definitely understand, and we are very cognizant of what you guys are saying, but it's that balancing act for us as the county. Okay. All right. Thank you, Tim. Let's see. We'll go back to chat. There's a couple questions like this. Let me go back to got myself lost. So Mandy is wondering, what would be the cost of a traffic light in this area? And her specific point is, since most vehicles don't turn on Bemis. And I had another person ask, name asked, like, what is the difference between the cost of a traffic signal and the cost of a roundabout?
For this location, we did not do a full estimate on, that traffic signal type. Matt, maybe you can talk to the background on that one more.
Yeah, certainly. I think the figure we had in the presentation may have been slightly off. We've been seeing costs come in at $1.2 million for the most recent roundabout that we built over at Zeven Liberty. A traffic signal would be similar in cost, because ultimately what you'd have to do is widen the road substantially for the left turn lanes. So you'd still be doing the same widening. And in fact, the lengths of the legs of the intersection might be slightly longer, depending on queuing space. And then you have the cost of the signal as well. So the costs are generally similar, but you don't have the added safety benefit for that the roundabout does provide, as was described earlier.
Okay, thank you. All right, so let's go back to Andy. He's got his mic working now. So Andy, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
We can, yep, go ahead with your question.
Excellent. My name's Andy Nelson. I'm a member of the board of the Lincoln Pines Homeowner Association, and I can provide you with the contact information for that board. We take all of that southwest corner. So the Foxtail Road is us, but also to the west, there's a link that will go from Bemis down to Whittaker. And in past construction, that was used by people as a detour, even if it's not official. And so our concern here is in June, when I've got a couple concerns, but when the school lets out, we have tons of people out walking on our streets, kids riding bikes, those kind of things. And I understand your point about public owned roads, right? But letting people do 50 to 60 mile an hour through our neighborhood is very dangerous. And there has been significant concern from the community about this. So if, obviously we do not want it used as the official detour, right? That is our first thing. We don't want it. As a community, we just don't want it. However, if it is forced upon us, and that is what we are looking at, then we must do something to control that traffic as well, whether it is temporary speed bumps all through that section or something else. We cannot have people going through our neighborhood at those speeds. Somebody is going to get hurt. And I know you're talking about safety here in the traffic circle, but you must think about traffic during the detours and the safety on that traffic. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And we will not be using that as our signed detour. I think when we're talking about the balance between public roads and keeping enforcement of that local, neighborhood or whatever it may be, is really just talking to the people that are not taking the signed detour. They're the ones that are trying to find the shortest route between 2 points. And that's the balancing act that we're talking about. It will not be as a part of the signed detour, if that answers your concern there.
And I understand, but that does not answer my concern, right? Because people do take it without having it be the detour. So we need something, some kind of mitigation on that road, because it will be used every day, many times a day, whether you want it to or not. It happened the last time. Right? The last time there was construction, it happened.
And
Previous,
Nate, let me jump in. And Andy, as Nate said, and Emily mentioned, we certainly recognize the impact that can be had on a subdivision community when we close a major intersection. We went through a similar circumstance this construction season. We built a roundabout at the intersection of Zeeb Road and Liberty Road here in Scioto Township. If anyone's familiar with that, it's here near our office on Zeeb Road. And the Polo Field subdivision is there. Similar to these subdivision roads, those are local county roads. They're public roads. We cannot arbitrarily close those roads to the public because they are open to all as public roads. The most effective way to provide a greater level of safety for those motorists that would choose to use those roads is enforcement. That means police enforcement. And my experience has been with 25 years of roadway construction is putting up signs, putting up even speed bumps does not completely alleviate a problem as a police officer does.
Okay, so let me ask you this, Aaron, because we
yes.
do not have a local police force in Augusta Township, and
Mm-hmm.
south of Bemis, from my understanding, is Augusta. So
yes.
If that is the case and that is your mechanism to mitigate the traffic speed, I expect an agreement from Washtenaw County Road Commission and the Sheriff's Department or whoever would enforce it. I want something in writing that says they will be there to enforce it, because we do not have police around here that enforce those kind of things. And at that point, you're just throwing something out there that's not actually a fix. You're just saying it should be the fix, and that's not reality, right? So we need to match reality to what is going to happen. So if you want to do that and that is your mitigation technique, that is fine. I don't think the community is going to have a problem with that, but you must show us that you are actually going to do it, right? You can't just say the police will take care of it and then the police do nothing.
Well, and Andy, I definitely understand that there's a lot to unpack here. I want to make sure we're getting to our other questions. So if you could please provide us your contact information. I think you said you're on the board for the sub.
That's right.
We will
And
definitely
there's
follow
one
up
more
with
item,
you.
but
Yeah.
that is key. You must provide mitigation. That is not a question. That is a must. Okay. Second thing, Robert had talked about the left turn lane onto Foxdale Court. That really does need to be a short turn lane because the eastbound traffic coming from that school will not allow somebody to turn, and that will back up way into the north part, and it will impact that north-south traffic. So as much as you say we'll look at it and you can turn left, when there's heavy traffic there, you can't. And we just need enough for one vehicle, because you don't have a lot of people turning left, but all it takes is one to back that whole traffic circle up, and it's so close to the circle. So we need to look into the cost add for that and see what it's going to be.
Yep, and like
Okay.
we said, we will definitely take a look at that. Andy, like I said, if you would please provide us your contact information, I will definitely forward that along to Nate and to Aaron.
Excellent.
So thank you for your questions. Okay, so let's see. The next question in chat is, this comes from Jay, and they're wondering, like, why did the Bemis and Carpenter Road intersection get a traffic signal where there's a lot more traffic versus a roundabout here at Bemis and Whittaker?
Matt, you want to step in on that one?
Yeah, we had looked at that. We had to do a little widening there, but it wasn't as much as it would have been for this intersection. We do look at and evaluate each intersection just because there's unique characteristics about them all. And on that particular one, we ended up going with a traffic signal.
So roundabout is the right solution in a lot of cases, but not always. We still build both. So thanks, Matt. Okay, so let's go to our next raised hand. We've got Joe. You should be able to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
We can. Yep. Go ahead with your question.
Okay, great. So my name's Joe Gallegos. I live on the northwest corner there of the intersection in question. I should start off by saying that I'm glad that there's going to be a traffic circle there. I think it's been needed for a long time because I've seen a lot of the craziness at the intersection, but I do have a lot of concerns. The first one is that if you actually go out on the road right now on Whittaker there in front of my house, and you look at my property and my neighbors, on the other side of the street, you look down into our yards. Our yards sit so much lower than the road. The road is raised up, and from everything that I've seen in the drawing and from the talks that I've had with Kurt, it seems like the ditches that are there along the side of the road are going to be taken out or replaced somehow, or no longer going to be there and functional. And I can say that, a few years ago when we had heavy rains in the spring, those ditches were flowing pretty well. In fact, the one on Bemis was almost a torrent, running down to the creek there when we had, the really heavy rains in the spring. So my question is, what's going to be done to take care of all that water flow if those ditches are not going to be there anymore?
Okay, Joe,
Yeah.
thanks for your question. Go ahead, Nate.
Yeah, so in this location, we're going to be putting in storm sewer. You can see it in that drawing there. You can see little lines with the circles on them. They represent where we're going to have catch basins and underground piping. That has been designed to handle the amount of flow that we have. We will also have, as you mentioned, in this area, it's not just your property, but there's a lot of places in this area where there are deep ditches and the water table is high. So we will, behind the curb, we will also have a swale there to handle any kind of runoff off of the surface to send that water in your case to the west there. So if you would like to talk further with that, please give me a call. We can talk the specifics.
Yeah, because I understand that, that the sewers that are on there and that swale is going to take care of water that's on the road. But what about like all the water that's on my property that usually runs down into the ditch?
Right.
Where's that water going to go?
Yeah, no, that's what I was, go ahead.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, Joe, again, Nate had mentioned what's going to happen is we're going for the roadway itself. That water is going to be collected by the curb and gutter and deposited into, that's going to flow into a storm sewer system through curb inlets. And then for the adjacent properties who currently rely on the existing open ditch section in order to drain the water off of their property surface, we're going to be constructing swales. Essentially, swales are shallow ditches. So we're going to be putting swales in back a curb and thereby collect that water and convey it around the curb, around the roundabout, and into that new drainage system. The one thing that we certainly consider with any roadway design is the storm sewers, the curb, the ditches are designed to a target capacity. We cannot design storm sewer or ditches to realize any extreme capacity. Again, we have to do this within reason. But again, that's all being considered as part of the design that Nate's working on with our design consultant. And Joe, certainly we will continue to discuss that with you. It's something that Kurt had brought to our attention, to Nate and I, based on your previous conversations with him. So certainly something that we'll continue to discuss with you and provide further detail on.
Okay, all right. I've got, let's see, next question I have is about lights at the intersection. So, I mean, I understand that there needs to be some kind of a lighting system there for safety. People coming up on the intersection need to be able to see it. But for a long time, when I have friends over my house, they would often comment about how nice and dark it is because I live in the country. You know, we'd go watch the meteor showers and all that stuff in the backyard. So my concern is, you know, how, you know, about excess light pollution and you know, having just the you know, basically my front yard lit up all, you know, all night long. Again, this is something that I brought up with Kurt. He mentioned that there might be some way to get like a directed light that just focuses the light down instead of having it spread all, you know, out laterally across to the neighboring properties. So I don't know if it's still too early to tell if you guys have made any decisions on that, or if or how that might be handled. Maybe even like having a sign and a light that shines directly on the sign instead of, again, just a light that just broadcasts light everywhere.
I can certainly take that one. I've got a fair amount of experience in working with our partner DTE Community Lighting Group. They actually do the lighting design for us. They use fixtures that are dark skies approved, and we work with them so that we're focusing the light on the roadway and directing it to broadcast over the roadway and not onto properties. That's typically our practice, and but it's got to be lit for safety's sake. As you're changing the geometry of the roadway, we're asking folks to slow down. We're changing with the splitter islands and whatnot, so we've got to provide some light at the intersection. Generally speaking, there'll be anywhere between 4 to 6 lights. Typically, they're a lot like what's north of here. So they'll be on 30-foot poles and directed over the roadway.
So you said, when you said north of here, like over at Merritt?
Yep.
Okay.
That's
I'll
correct.
take a look at
We are
those
using
tonight.
a slightly different fixture. So our more recent lighting design, you could go to Pontiac Trail and North Territorial is one that got constructed this year, and also Zeeb and Liberty. So lighting designs have evolved a little bit in that the type of fixture DTE Community Lighting Group provides us has changed over time. So the things that were constructed in Ypsilanti Township a number of years ago, the fixtures are slightly different. So I will give you warning of that. But once again, DTE Community Lighting Group, they're experts in Southeast Michigan. They are the lighting designers. We'll certainly share concerns with them. And once we get a lighting plan, we can certainly talk with you individually as well.
Okay, all right, I'll move on to my next question. So I've got electric, power poles that run across both road fronts on my property. And there's easements that are involved with those. So I take it that the telephone pole or power line pole that's there at the intersection, that's going to end up redefining the easement, and you're going to take, that's going to get pushed back farther onto my property. Is that correct? Or how's that going to be handled?
Yeah, Joe, and I'm not sure that we've developed the plans to the extent needed to be able to answer that question yet.
Okay.
Again, that's something that if there's an existing DTE easement there, we have to be thoughtful about requesting that DTE move a pole out of the easement that they may already possess. But again, that would be something that as we continue to refine the plans that we're putting together, we'd be able to identify individual utilities that have to be relocated, including the poles that you referenced that are adjacent to your property there.
Yeah, because there's a pole that's, almost right on the corner there. It's got to get moved, obviously. So I'm just wondering if it's going to encroach more on my property. But anyways, I'll move on to the next question. What kind of consideration have you guys given to any pedestrian traffic moving through that intersection there? Again, I live there. I see people jogging, riding their bikes, you name it, kids going through the intersection, people walking through. What kind of safety considerations have you integrated into the design for pedestrians?
At this location, we don't have any current plans to put any crosswalks or anything. There is none out there currently, so we had not included that in the design.
Is there going to be like a shoulder that they're going to be able to walk on, or or ride their bikes on, or do whatever?
Well, no, there's not gonna be a bike lane per se, but so no.
Yeah, we just to mention, we met with both Ypsilanti Township and Augusta Township to inquire if there was pedestrian facilities planned for this intersection. And as of right now, there are no plans, so we did not include that in the design. And typically, we take our lead from the townships on non-motorized facilities and pedestrian facilities. Certainly, that we will accommodate them into the design if they exist. And this design could be modified, certainly, if at some point in the future there was a desire and a project to add pedestrian facilities.
All right. Last question. Just curious why the offset of the center of the traffic circle has been pushed to the west.
You can see there's in the bottom and the south leg, you can see the right-of-way lines are those black lines that go either side of the road. We are centering it on that. That was the new width there. It's wider at the south end. And we also have existing utilities that are in the area. So we are particularly, we have Augusta Township force mains and existing facilities for them that we are working around, trying to keep our impact to that as minimum as possible.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Joe. All right, so we have a lot more questions in chat. We also have, I see Jay Sparley has a few other questions. I'm gonna wait because that person also has their hand raised. So we'll keep working through our chat question and then we'll go back to those who have their hand raised. My next question comes in from Mark, and he has a couple of comments about drainage concerns, but one of his questions is there gonna be any use of permeable concrete in this project?
No, we will not. We're not looking at that. We are, as was mentioned, we are handling the water, the flow through the storm sewer and the area ditches as well as the swales behind the curb, but we will not be doing any pervious pavement, no.
Okay, all right. So let's go back to a raised hand. Carrie, you should be able to unmute yourself now. You're next.
Yes, hi.
Hi.
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
I
go ahead.
tuned in.
No,
I
that's okay.
tuned
Go
in a
ahead with
little
your
bit
question.
late. Sure, I tuned in a little late. I have two questions. The first one is, and perhaps you already talked about it, why Bemis Road is getting this before Willis. Lived in this area for almost 10 years, and I feel like Willis gets way more backed up than Bemis. Is that in the future?
Yes. So maybe you want to go to that slide with the corridor.
Yeah, yep. Let me go back to that one. Hold on a second. It'll take me a second.
So we are looking at this as a corridor, the Whittaker Road corridor. And we have, this year, we will be doing the 2023 construction, or I'm sorry, not this year. 2023 construction for the Bemis and Whittaker location. And then 2024 will be the Willis Road. And that I believe there's funding issues that dictated the timing for that. So.
Okay. And then how long is the Bemis Road gonna take, the roundabout?
We estimate it'll be about 14 weeks for the work to be completed.
Okay, that's not bad. Then the other question I didn't even consider, but Joe had brought up, I live in Lincoln Pines and we have a drainage pond in our backyard that gets significantly high and has flooded our basement multiple times. And so Joe mentioned that the ditches are going to be removed and you're going to be rerouting the water coming west. We are west. So what kind of capacity are you going to be routing this away from the community ponds, or are we going to end up with a really wet backyard and wet
Yeah,
basement?
absolutely. Can you go back to the aerial there, Emily, please?
Yep, hold on a sec. Oh, actually, I voted this one. We got it in a couple spots. Oh, maybe not. Sorry, hold on. Close your eyes. This may make you seasick. Here we go. Okay, there you go. Sorry, Nate.
Yeah, so we will not be putting it into, you know, your pond or whatever. We are sending the water to the west there toward the drain. There's a drain that's just to the west of our limits there on the west leg. And we are sending all the water toward that. So the water that is, you know, generated from the additional pavement or whatever it may be, the construction of this roundabout, we will be addressing that with the storm sewer and sending it to the drain there. It's a county drain that is crossing Bemis Road just to on the west leg there, just beyond our limits. So
that is not connected to our subdivision drainage, because I know that it looks like it goes out to the ditches on the far south end of the neighborhood, but it seems like our drainage area, and then there's an adjacent one that's closer to the roundabout, and they get full pretty well. So you're saying it's not going to go into that at all?
We have made a concerted effort to get all the water over to that drain, because that is the county drain, and that you know, side, you know, cuts off, you know, sends most of the water that way. So we'll be handling it through the county drain system there.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, your individual community stormwater management system probably outlets to the same drain, but it is not a part of the county drain that we are discharging to.
If for some reason we notice after this is all done that we have more water, like, is there any kind of person we can contact, or I mean,
Ultimately, I don't know if you have a private stormwater management system or if it's maintained by the Water Resource Commissioner's office. Any questions related to the county drain, which we're getting a permit for, I believe, you can contact the County Water Resource Commissioner's office.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks, guys. Okay, we'll keep working through our chat questions. So this question comes from Donald, and he is asking if the raised approaches, so I think the islands and that central island, if that will alter if that'll make things more difficult to plow, or if it'll change the priority of when that intersection gets plowed. I can answer that. So it will not change the priority level. So our snow plowing is done on a priority level. And so the fact that it's a roundabout versus a traffic signal does not change that. And he does say he prefers that it improve how quickly we get out there, and we do our best. Every storm, our response time depends on every storm is different. And then as far as doesn't make it more difficult to plow, and I don't know if anybody else wants to chime in, but we have worked with our operations group, who are the ones that do the plowing, and really have tried to make sure that our design is not making things more difficult. It's definitely different than plowing an intersection with a traffic signal, but it is still plowable and something that we take very seriously and that we work closely with our snowplow drivers on. So it's definitely something that we take into consideration when we are planning roundabouts. And Nate or Aaron, is there anything else you want to add on the topic of snow?
No, again, Emily, you addressed the fact that this wouldn't change the priority of the route. And the feedback that we've received in general from our district foreman is it actually can be a more straightforward process for them to remove snow from a roundabout as opposed to a traditional intersection. So that's something that certainly is yet another benefit of a roundabout is if it provides for more efficient snow removal, that's a good thing for everybody.
Okay, so let's go back. We've got a raised hand. This is Jay Spurley. I know, Jay, you had a couple questions. You should be able to unmute yourself.
Yeah, so my question comes back to, it's kind of with the paving of it, but not quite. So my family's been on Bemis Road for about 60 years, and nobody can tell us when the last time gravel was actually laid down. So we have a couple issues with the current maintenance of Bemis Road, but with water, being flow, we keep talking about water, and we keep talking about, the subdivision, where does all that traffic go? So we're further down. Over the years between Whittaker and Rawsonville, with all these subdivisions being added, we are the cut through, and nothing's being done to our road. So now we're going to get more detour traffic for 14 weeks. Our road right now today is a swamp. Our road is the ditch. Our ditches have all been filled in. So we keep talking about where this water runs. It runs onto Bemis Road and stays there. The grading gets put, the road grader goes around the water. So half of our road doesn't get graded anyways. So I would like to know, how do we take care of the currently failing road that's now going to be a detour, whether it's posted or not? We're going to get most of this traffic, but from Whittaker to Rawsonville, that road's in horrible shape, and we can't put more water. The water flows east, no matter what. I know there's a drain there to the west, but water from that intersection flows east, and it's going to get backed up on our road. It won't make it to the ditch because our road is the ditch now.
So for the intersection storm sewer, we are piping storm water from the east edge to the west. So we aren't going to make that condition any worse. And certainly we're aware of the current condition of Bemis Road between Whittaker and Rawsonville. Certainly maintain it best we can, but it is a local road that obviously is in need of investment. Unfortunately, we're not here to talk about that particular segment, but we recognize that.
So how is that going to be mitigated, since where's the detour going to be? Obviously, people are going to go down Bemis Road. So I feel like that needs to be addressed.
Well, typically we post the detour, pave roads to pave roads. So that'll be the posting. But you're right. There are residents and locals that will use Bemis Road east of the intersection. There's no doubt in my mind that certainly will happen. But we will post the detour for paved roads. And we've mitigated from the standpoint of the stormwater. We're not going to make your situation any worse. We're not sending any water to the east.
Yeah, and I think, like Matt mentioned, that section of Bemis is a local road. And so there are funding restrictions on what can be put into local roads. Again, that's not the topic of today's meeting, but it is tricky. And so Jay, if you want to provide your contact information, we'd be happy to follow up with you individually. But local roads versus primary roads, specific projects versus, so it gets road funding gets tricky really quickly. So, but again, the focus of today's meeting is about the intersection improvement. But if you want to provide us your contact information, we'd be happy to follow up.
The problem is that this has been an ongoing thing that everyone keeps just kicking the can down the road. Nobody ever wants to talk about it. So here's another opportunity that we're changing a major intersection and talking about the corridor, but the corridor is not getting addressed. So once again, we keep doing this is, oh, that's not us. Oh, that's Ipsy Township. Oh, that's Augusta. Oh, that's funding's not here. The funding's not there. At what point everyone's acknowledging that the road is horrible. It's probably one of the worst in the county, but nothing's even on the books to look at it and do anything.
Yep, I think we definitely understand your frustration and are not going to solve that today, but we'd be happy to follow up with you. We definitely all understand your frustration though.
And then the next question is, we talked about a traffic signal, and I keep hearing that we didn't even look into it. So how do we know that that's cheaper than a roundabout?
So I don't think we said we didn't look into it. I think that Nate said we did not do a cost estimate on it. And as we mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, there's a lot of reasons. Cost is one factor that we consider, but there are a lot of reasons that we chose a roundabout over a traffic signal here. Nate or Aaron, I don't know if you want to reiterate any of those, but cost is a factor, but not the only factor.
And that's correct, Emily. Yeah, you touched on it, that we did not take the time to prepare a detailed engineer's estimate for a signalized intersection option here, because as we weighed the benefits of a roundabout versus the benefits of a signalized intersection, it was worth the investment of the money to build a roundabout at this location. And again, we evaluate that on a variety of items, and not necessarily just based on cost. So,
and this is going to be like the Whittaker and Merritt Center, not like Hitchingham and what would be Textile.
Yep, that's correct. Yeah, Hitchingham and Textile, and Textile and Stony Creek. Those are a different type of roundabout. Those have just a slightly raised center island. These will be the more traditional roundabout. These are the ones with the raised center island, the raised approach splitter islands with curb and gutter. So it'd be more similar to the one that you referenced there at Merritt. That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for your questions. All right, so let's go back to chat. This is a question and comment from Mike, and he appreciates roundabouts, I think, but is concerned about the number of people who still struggle with how to drive in a roundabout, and is wondering if there's any resources available that we're putting forth or others are putting forth to help educate the public. I can take this one. We are definitely trying to put information out there. As Nate said, we've got a lot of information on our website. We share periodically information on our social media. We've also worked with local drivers education programs to incorporate using roundabout safely into drivers education for new drivers. In our experience, anecdotally, we find it's really not the younger drivers or the older drivers that are struggling with roundabouts. It's more that kind of middle range drivers that I think Nate and Aaron and I all fall into that age range. So I think it's definitely something that we're trying to put information out there. I think there's law enforcement's trying to put information out there, but it's slowly as people learn them better and learn and see more of them, it will continue to improve. But note taken there from Mike. The next question is, so Donald is asking about on this drawing, we've got these red curbs on the grassy part of the roundabout. Do you want to talk a little bit about what those are, Nate?
Sure thing. Yeah, so as I mentioned, these accommodate larger vehicles. So the center island allows room for a truck to make the turn, and the trailer can track over that center island as needed. These outside aprons, we call them, truck aprons that you see there, are similar to that, where it allows for a larger vehicle to make the turn and the trailer would track over that area without making a rut or a ditch there. So there's actually pavement there that provides the surface for the larger vehicles to enter and make that turn.
Okay, thank you, Nate. All right, so our next hand raised is we've got Rodney. Rodney, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, we can hear you. Go ahead with your question.
Yeah. So Rodney Grover, 8032 Jack Pine. I was the third homeowner in Lincoln Pines subdivision on Jack Pine Drive, which is not being shown in the overhead topography map here. And I missed the question earlier about traffic patterns. And a comment was made about policing. We have no policing in south of Augusta Township, or excuse me, south of Bemis Road in Augusta Township. Who is going to control the already out of control speeding that happens on Jack Pine when you guys open up between Whittaker Road and Bemis, our subdivision, for through traffic because it's a paved road? We are very concerned. We've already called the state police, who have to travel all the way from Brighton, Michigan to patrol this subdivision. Somebody's going to get killed or hurt on this intersection when you guys open this up for this detour. It is out of control already. And I am very concerned as a resident. I've been here for 20 years. I was concerned after you had paved Bemis Road. We had incidents where people were going around your barricades on Bemis Road to come and cut through our subdivision. So we need to really consider, before this project is started, some communications with Washtenaw County Sheriff's deputies, which are right up the road, or speed bumps or something to protect our community as you open. I'm not saying you can't open up a road, you own the roads, but as a taxpayer, I'm super concerned about what's going to transpire coming through our subdivision.
And one thing that we do, and thank you, Rodney, again, we realize this is a concern when we close an intersection such as Bemis and Whittaker and look at those traffic volumes that go through there. When we set up an intersection closure, we have a hard closure at the intersection. And essentially that hard closure is we completely barricade off the road to prevent all but the construction personnel and the trucks and the equipment from getting on and off the job site. In advance of that, we put up additional barricades where we allow a gap in the barricades for local traffic to come through. And what we found is oftentimes if we are able to communicate with local law enforcement at the front end of a project, when an intersection closure starts, if they're on site and they kind of reinforce the fact that it's closed and it's only open to local traffic, that can help. We also on past projects have put up barricades and signs at subdivision entrances. I mentioned earlier in the meeting that when we did this year's project at Zeeb and Liberty and built a roundabout there, we put barricades and signs up that indicate local traffic only. Those signs, while it may discourage people from driving through, are not enforceable. Again, because the roads in question are local roads, they're county roads, they are basically open to the public. The public can use those type of roads. But again, what we found to be effective is good communication on the front end with law enforcement, requesting their support. There really is not much we can do about the availability of law enforcement in Augusta Township, because that really is a township concern. That's something that the township has to consider further, but not something that the road commission would get directly involved with.
Okay, thanks, Aaron. All right, we'll keep working along on our chat questions. This is more of a question or a comment than a question, but Mark had a couple ideas for us that I'm just going to voice and then we'll go from there. But he suggested that could we just, until more of Bemis gets paved, his suggestion would be to just have a stop sign on Bemis to have Whittaker move freely through and install the roundabout once Bemis got paved. That is not the plan. This is what we're moving forward with, but that was Mark's suggestion, just to put it out there. The other question that we have is, Mark also is asking about how we communicate about the closure with Google. So as we all know, a lot of people use Google Maps. So what we'll do ahead of the closure is that we'll notify Google. We do this with every closure that we have, of when the closure is going to start and the approximate end date. And then that's up to Google. Unfortunately, I can't control how they use that information. All I can do is provide that information to them of how they mark that. It's not something that I can contact Google. I don't have a cell phone number of somebody at Google, but I use their process as a government agency to notify them. And then they'll mark that as closed. I can't I can't have them close Jack Pine Drive or other roads, but I can at least share the project information with Google. And that's just how their system works. So we've got a hand raised here. This is Andy. Andy, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Yes, this is Andy again, and I have to say I'm very frustrated right now because we have told you we don't have local law enforcement twice, right? And we understand that you cannot close Jack Pine Drive to other cars. That's not what we're asking for. We're asking for mitigation on the speed of the drivers coming through our neighborhood. Most neighborhoods have those really curvy roads, so you can't go fast. Ours isn't. Look at the map. It's straight. So the people come down this road crazy fast. There is going to be children and people all over this road at that time of year. Something has to be done. Your not my problem answers are not sufficient. You keep saying police is not your problem. That's not what we're asking for. We're asking for mitigation of some type, not a not my problem answer. So think about it. You are the guys that do this. You are the experts in this. Come up with a way to mitigate high-speed traffic on Jack Pine Drive once this closes. That is the only request here on that. It's not hard. Just please stop giving us not my problem answers.
Okay, thank you for your comments, Andy. Here we've got a question about, let me see here. Amy is asking, is there a choice that the residents have as to whether this roundabout is built or not? And Amy, we are not taking a vote. This is the project that we have planned. This is what we plan to construct in 2023. The purpose of today's meeting is to let the community know about the design and to know about the plans that we have in place and to seek feedback and to hear from you all. And the feedback that we've been receiving today has been very helpful. But no, we are moving forward with this project. It's not something that we're taking to a vote from the public. Nate or Aaron, or Matt, is there anything you want to add to that point?
Nope, you are correct.
Okay. All right. So, and Andy, we do have your contact information. Like we have said, we will definitely follow up with you. And I don't think we're trying to make light or to brush off your concerns. We definitely understand your concerns, but we will definitely follow up with you. Let's see, Carrie, I think we got your question about why Bemis before Willis. Mark is wondering what is the approximate elevation of the water table? I don't think that we will have that information handy, but Mark, I know you've had a lot of questions. If you want to provide us your contact information, we can also follow up with you directly. But Mark had a couple different comments coming through, but appreciated our help today. So if Mark, if you want to provide us your contact information, we can do that. Let's see, Donald has more of a comment saying that the sewer should be designed to have a capacity that protects current residents, not just meet current standards. If the neighbor's house is enjoying beyond spec drainage now, this project should not take that away. Nate or Aaron, is there anything you guys want to add to that?
We designed the storm sewer to handle the topography and this, the surface of the road. So, that's just how the design is set up, and we'll be handling the runoff from the road with as I've said, with the storm sewer. The area drainage from property will be handled as well. We'll send that through a swale that's behind the curb. So we are taking those things into consideration and feel confident of that.
Okay, thanks, Nate. This is a question or a comment more from Nathan, and he is really glad to see that this is about 100-foot diameter roundabout being built here, and that feels like roundabouts built in other places are a little too small. And Nathan, I know you're asking really like what is the reasons leading up to those decisions that we've made in previous. That's not the purpose of today's meeting, and I want to be respectful of everybody's time. If you want to provide us your contact information, we'd be happy to follow up. But it is something that we have been evolving at in our roundabout design. But if you want to know specifics, please give us your contact information. We can talk roundabouts all day, but I just want to be respectful of everybody's time. Okay, and then we've got, let's see, just looking through here. This question is from Robert, and I think that we may refer this to County Resource or County Drain Commissioner's office, but let me ask it anyway. So this comes from Robert, and he wants to know if the county's drain empties to the adjacent creek. He believes it flows south and then it occasionally floods. Nate, is that a better question for Water Resources Commissioner's Office?
Yes.
Okay, which is a separate entity than the Road Commission, and a regulated county drain is regulated and maintained by the Washtenaw County Water Resources Commissioner's Office. It's a mouthful, but it is a separate entity. So, okay, we do have a hand raised here. Carrie, if you you should be able to unmute yourself.
Yes, thanks. One more time, going back through about Jack Pine and the drive-through, how can we get speed bumps put in? Is that something our HOA has to work with the County Road Commission to have that put in, or is that already added to the project? If speed bumps could deter the speed and maybe bring a little reassurance to all of us that live in this community.
I can certainly speak to that. We have a neighborhood traffic calming program. If the community would like to initiate that process, we can work with them to do that. It would be something that program is paid for either by the township or the residents ultimately. And if it qualifies, it's got to go through initial analysis and then to see if it would qualify for speed humps. But certainly you can start that process with us.
Okay. And I'm sorry, who would I contact about that with your department?
Yeah,
Anybody
you can
specific?
contact Nate and he'll guide you to the most appropriate folks in our traffic and safety section.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Okay, thanks, Carrie. All right, we've got a few more questions here. I know we're going to run along, but these are all great questions. So let's see. Tim is asking about a detour map and thinks that that'll help kind of sort things out. We absolutely agree, Tim. Again, this is really the design meeting. And so the detour map is being developed and we will have that posted, and we will definitely talk through that in detail in our construction information meeting that we will hold prior to actual road construction next year. And so stay tuned, but we will definitely get that posted once we have that sorted. We're just not at that phase of the project yet, but note taken for sure. Mark, I've got your contact information. Thank you for providing that. Rodney, you should be able to unmute yourself. I see you have a couple of questions in chat. It looks like maybe you want to verbalize those instead.
Yeah, listen, it was just the last question. You have my contact information. We do have some ideas as a community. By the way, I was the president here for 14 years in the association. We do have some ideas about potential mitigation, as already has been mentioned by your staff there in regards to speeding traffic. We'll work on those with you. The second thing, though, is really important. The top coat was put on Lincoln Pines subdivision 17 years ago, meaning the finished top coat up to curb was put on 17 years ago. We are already deteriorating as a road. Jack Pine is, with the heavy traffic coming in for construction, there's no less than 8 foundations that are going in right now with new homes. So the road is already deteriorating. With any extra traffic coming in 2023, what are the plans for a grind and a new top coat for our subdivision?
Currently, we do not have any plans for that.
Yeah, Matt, do you want to expound a little bit more on that?
Yeah, it's a little bit about the local road program. Typically, when a local road, specifically one that's in a subdivision, reaches the end of its service life, ultimately, what we will do is we can facilitate a special assessment district to finance the reconstruction of the local roads. But again, that's a different topic for another meeting.
Thanks, Matt. So I am going to put a couple links in the chat here. I paused my slideshow. I'm first going to put a chat to our neighborhood traffic management program that Matt mentioned. So this is our procedure and our policy related to things like speed humps on local subdivision streets that we've talked about. I'm also going to do an FAQ here, and we've got all these. Actually, let me just show you where I'm looking. So on our website, this is the link that I just shared about our neighborhood traffic management program. There's also an FAQ section here where we talk about a lot of different topics that we have talked about today. So road funding is one, and talking about local roads versus primary roads, that is a big difference. And so there's some more information here about local roads and just road funding in general. We also have a ton of great information that we provide every year with our townships, because we partner with township on local road improvements. So if you go under our township section here, you can find the township booklets where we really go into detail with each township about what the local road needs are within their township. And the spoiler alert is that there are way more needs than there are funding available from anybody. And so again, getting into that balancing act of trying to improve existing roads, improve intersections like we're doing, and do all of the other things that we're required to do, and trying to balance all that is all part of our work here at the Road Commission. So those are just a couple links that may be helpful to people and that are available right on our website. So I think, let me double check. Let me get back to the slides here. I think we're almost through our questions in chat. So let's see. Rodney, we do have your contact information, so thank you for sharing that. We sent the info regarding speed humps there in the chat. And we will clarify more about our detour route. Tim's asking a question about that. Matt's asking a question. Yes, we will be posting this video, the recording of today's meeting and the slideshow that we've been going through on our website. And that'll be posted here in the next day or two. Let me get the link to the project page one more time, and so everybody can have that. On that project page, you can subscribe to receive road updates. And so that's where you can get emails. You'll get an email about the construction information meeting. If we've got some utility relocation work that'll take place before construction, you'll get notice about that. And then periodic updates throughout construction. So that email update list is a great way to get to stay in the loop about this project. And I think that we've gotten through all of our questions. Thanks everybody for sticking around with us today. Nate or Aaron, is there anything else you guys would like to add, or Matt, before I sign off for the day?
Only that if you have any additional concerns, please let me know. My contact information is there.
Oh yeah, let me go to that. Thanks, Nate. Oops, let me get back to the end of our slides. There's Nate's contact information. Again, that is also available on that project web page that I just shared a link to on the website. Aaron, is there anything you'd like to add?
Nope. Just as you said, Emily, we appreciate everybody taking the time this afternoon to ask some very good questions, some very thoughtful questions, and to learn a little bit more about this project. As Nate mentioned, we will have another public information meeting in the spring. That date is yet to be determined, but that will be in advance of the construction. So we'll have the project plans further developed at that point. We may at that point have a contractor identified who will actually perform the work. But again, there will be a subsequent meeting. And certainly between now and then, anyone who has questions or concerns can follow up with Nate. And Nate can carry those to the appropriate Road Commission staff members so we can get back with people.
Great. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Thank you for joining us. And like we said, we'll get this posted to the project page in the next day or two. And thanks, everybody, for joining us today.